So good afternoon, everyone. So today I'm going to be presenting to you about the talent development at Riddoch North End. The reason I'm presenting this is because it's a very important topic, because it's vital that we get the right athletes in the right talent development system so we can get the right athletes on the right programme to reach the highest levels that they can do. Before we start, I sent you out a pre-workshop sort of reading on about RE in sport. Have you got any questions you'd like to ask me on that first before I get into the presentation?
Nope.
I'd just sort of just ask, like, briefly sort of looked over it, sort of what is relative age effect?
So essentially it's about players' birthdays within an age group. So for example, in an under 10s age group, you'd have, for instance, someone born in September, so they will be the oldest person in that age group. And you can have someone born the following August, who's actually the youngest player in that age group. But if you think about it there, that player is 11 months older, the one born in September, compared to the one born in August. So they're 11 months older, essentially, even though they're playing the same age group. So they tend to be more physically mature, physically stronger. So they have that advantage compared to the younger athletes within that age group.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So on the screen here, you can see about the RE sort of in youth football across Europe. So particularly it's about sort of the age groups where people are getting selected within academies. As you can see, the one with England, 50% of our players within academies are actually born in that first quarter one. So quarter one in the UK is September to November. So 50% of our athletes in academies are actually born in that first quarter, compared to the other quarters. Particularly quarter four is always a low one because it's the youngest players. They tend to be less physically developed, less physically mature, so they have a physical sort of disadvantage compared to other players within their age group. So an example of how this sort of levels off when you get to sort of elite and adult levels is particularly, this is Manchester City's first team squad. And as you can sort of see, the quarters sort of level off, and even that quarter one's only 8%, and there's only 2 that are born at quarter one. So once you sort of reach that adult elite levels, it sort of levels off, which is why I'm presenting this, because it's important in talent development that we understand what RE is and understand the effects of it, because particularly in academies, you can see that number was 50% in academy level, now it's 8%. So it's important that we don't select too many quartile ones just based off their physical sort of look rather than their actual technical ability, because they tend to be not as technically talented as we thought they were. Have you got any questions so far on this?
No, sounds good.
No. So next slide I'm going to present is about the solutions to this. One solution that is currently being used in sport to sort of tackle RE is biobanding. So as you can see on the screen, there is across 3 age groups, the under 13s to under 15s. And as you can see, they're roughly the same height and roughly the same build. So basically, biobanding groups players together based off their biological age and not their chronological age. So it groups them together based off their size and strength rather than their age. So as an example, them under 13s on your left are probably quartile ones within that age group, and the under 15s are probably quartile 4s. So you can sort of group them together, and it gives them sort of a different sort of test, if you like. So for instance, the younger under 15s, they can really show their technical and tactical abilities off, and you'll be able to, scouts and coaches will be able to see their true abilities when they're going against other people their height. And also it's an advantage for them under 13s, because they'll be going against players their same physical size now, so they'll have a different sort of test and match up to be able to deal with. Have you got any questions on biobanding or how it can be used?
Yeah, I've got one. Do you know of any grassroots footballs now, that use biobanding?
Currently at grassroots, I don't know any. In professional sport, in terms of football, Watford and Bournemouth have trialled it a few times and said it's gone really successfully. However, even though no grassroots clubs have really talked about using it, it's got no disadvantage, if you like, because if you do it at, for instance, the under 13s, they're going to have a different sort of matchup because they're going against people their size, so it gives them a different test than the under 15s. You can see their technical and tactical ability. So it's not, even though other grassroots clubs aren't using it, it's not really got a downside to it, if you like. Have you got any other questions, Matt or Jack?
No.
So the next topic I'm going to talk about is the actual talent identification within the club. Currently, the club only advertises for players or tries to identify players through Facebook and Twitter when there's sort of a new team developing or a new opening within the team. They just sort of go on Facebook and Twitter and post when they'd like to find a player, or they're trying to find a player, whereas I think the club can do sort of new methods to identify talented athletes. So on how I think that we can identify talented athletes in the best ways, I think we can visit local schools. Visiting local schools is a method used by many sports and in by many clubs. It's a great way to sort of find people in that local area that may want to participate in sport, but don't currently participate outside of sport yet. And it's a great way to be able to potentially find talented athletes, particularly, even though you might not, obviously football would be the main one that we'd go look at, but you could also find potentially if you go watch a basketball session, you might find a basketball player with great hand-eye coordination skills and great sort of handwork. And with the help of FA qualified coaches and the facilities that we have at Reddish North End, we could potentially make them a good goalkeeper. So there's actually potential for talented identifying athletes within other sports as well. Have you got any questions on identifying athletes in schools or anything like that?
The only question I sort of got is, obviously, besides like the whole COVID thing at the minute, do you know of any grassroots clubs that are sort of going into schools, identifying them?
Not really going into schools. Quite a lot of the clubs have connections with their local schools. So with Reddish North End, Reddish Vale's the local school that we have, and there are a lot of connections, and often the PE teachers sort of know if they see a talented athlete, they'll send them to the local club in that sport. So they might send them to Reddish North End for if they're spot talented footballer. But I think that with the connections that we do have potentially, I know COVID might be a potential issue here, but if we can send a club to be able to go to an after school club to be able to watch some of the football sessions, they might be able to find a potentially talented athlete.
Yeah.
However, there is a slight issue when it comes to a sort of identifying people, athletes in school, particularly one of the reasons why you might find a talented athlete within a school, but they're not actually participating outside of schools because of the social factors. So obviously participating in sport outside of school does cost money and finance for parents. And some of these children might not have parents that are able to fund for them to go play in sport. And that's why some of these potentially talented athletes, we need to sort of get them in the talent pathway. However, they're not on it because of finance alone from their parents. And a statistic here on your screen shows that 7% of the UK's population attends private schools, and of them, 37% of the British medal winners at London 2012 attended a private school. Obviously, people that attend private schools more often than not come from richer backgrounds and got richer parents and richer sort of households. So essentially, this sort of means that people are only getting opportunities in sport to reach higher levels due to their family income, which obviously isn't right. We want to get the right people in the right environments based off their talent and sort of their skill set rather than just the amount of money that their families have to be able to get them to participate in sport. Have you got any questions on like sort of the finance around sport or anything like that?
I've got one. If you said then about obviously it's not ideal for not as wealthy parents to send their kids to certain clubs and whatnot. So how could the clubs, the grassroots clubs and higher level clubs make it more affordable for parents to send their kids to that kind of training?
Just hold that question. I'm going to present that in the next slide.
No worries.
Matt, did you have one as well, by the way?
No, that was the one. I was going to ask.
Right. So some of the solutions to sort of how we can do this, we could try, if, for instance, we find a talented athlete and we want them in our club because we believe they can sort of progress even onto higher levels, we could try maybe run some free or more affordable sessions. So, for instance, we get a child to the club for a trial session and they say, yeah, the coach wants them and the player wants to play. However, they sort of say, or the parent says, yeah, I'd love to be able to send my child here, but I can't afford for them to play. Could we come with some more like free or affordable sort of payment plans for them to be able to do? And also another sort of method to actually raise finance, if that's not possible, is particularly the club often do a lot of fundraising. Particularly, I know they want to send clubs out to European countries because they like to go on summer camps. However, I know that's obviously not possible. So could we actually use that money instead of going on summer camps to be able to get some athletes that are from poorer backgrounds to be able to participate in the sport? What do you guys sort of think on that? Do you guys think that'd be a good idea?
Yeah.
I think that solves the issue. Yeah, I think it solves the finance issue and it gets the kids going.
Exactly, because the whole point of this is we want the most talented athletes in essentially the right environment. So if there's a talented footballer, we want to get them on the pathway so hopefully they can sort of reach higher or elite levels. We don't just want a player participating as such because they're from a richer background. Obviously, we're not gonna stop a child playing from sport. However, we just want to get the most talented athletes in this pathway as we can. Have you guys got any questions on the subjects I've raised so far?
No.
So that's it for the presentation. Have you got any sort of questions you'd like to ask about anything that I've raised so far, or any questions about anything else within the talent pathway?
No, I think I'm okay.
The only sort of question I'd ask is, with obviously the relative age effect, do you think it's sort of, obviously I know you said that once they get to a certain age, they start to sort of like drop off. But like, would you say it works within sport?
What do you mean in terms of, do I believe it's an actual thing in sport?
Yeah.
Definitely, because as obviously I've shown some sort of statistics on that fact in terms of in academies, the percentage is almost 50% across all the countries at quartile 1. But when you get to adult and elite age groups, it's more or less 25% across all the age groups. That happens in all sports as well, but at that adult age group, it does level off at 25%. So it's definitely a factor. And the reason that they are getting selected at these, the quartile ones often get selected, is because they are physically stronger. They've potentially gone through puberty a few months earlier. So that they're getting selected based off their physical abilities rather than technical and tactical abilities. So it definitely is a factor in sport. But it's important as coaches and scouts that we are aware of this, because as I've just shown, when you get to adult levels, it levels off. So we need to be aware, maybe if we find a quartile 4 that's not necessarily the biggest, it might be quite small, but it's got great technical and tactical ability, we've got to just push them to one side because they're not the biggest. I think Lionel Messi is the greatest example, because he's actually born in the quartile 4. He's born in June, which is in quarter 4. Obviously, he's quite small, and he was told as a young age that he'd never really be a footballer because he's not the biggest and strongest. However, he's one of the best footballers in the world. So I think that's sort of the greatest example that if we can try spot a bit of talent in these technical skills, even though they might not be the biggest, they could still potentially make a talented athlete.
Yeah. So you know, like quartile 4, sort of like kids.
Yeah.
Would you say they're not necessarily sort of mentally sort of stronger, but like they have some form of mentality that sort of makes them sort of not give up sort of hope when all these like quartile 1 kids are like sort of coming through?
I think definitely it builds some resilience in these players, because when they're playing, for instance, at younger age groups, and from the stats I've shown you, they'll be going against people bigger than them and more physically stronger than them. So obviously they've got a different test, and it's sort of similar to how it works with siblings, because particularly younger siblings are often more successful athletes than older siblings, because when they've grown up, they often get beat up by brothers, and they're often trying to be competitive and look up to their brothers and get knocked down. So they really build that resilience up, and I think it's the same here with the quartile 4. So like you said, they come up against people physically stronger than them more or less every week within the sport. So yeah, they are developing a bit of resilience, and it might give them sort of that determination to sort of keep pushing on. That's why at the adult age groups it more or less evens out, because them quartile 4s have sort of developed that resilience and fight to be able to reach them elite levels. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Have you got any more questions before I end this?
No,
yeah, I've just got one more for you, Harvey. I was thinking about what Matt just said then about the relative age group. The kids born in quarter 4 from say June, July, and August. I myself am born in August, so I was always one of the youngest kids in my year. And I know I hear what you're saying about it's smaller and less physical, but I wouldn't really say I'm small for my age as an 18. And I've played football since I was younger, and I've felt the differences in the size and against my position, but I've never been a slight advantage. It's always been small differences. It's never been massive. So would you say the kids born in quarter 4 would have a less chance of being picked than in quarter 1?
That's essentially what this topic is about, because they tend to be a bit physically more stronger than a quartile 4, because they've just, if you think about, say, someone born in August and someone born in September, they're 11 months older. So they are older, so they have had more time to grow and develop. It's obviously not the reason for everything. You can have a quartile 4 that's gone through a growth spurt early and just tends to be stronger than everyone else. It's obviously not consistent across, everyone goes through puberty at different ages. Everyone sort of has growth spurts at different ages. So particularly like you said, you might not have noticed it during your sort of development, but it does happen. Some of those people that are 11 months old, younger, it's like having someone from the age group below playing in your team that will tend to be a bit smaller and less stronger. So it definitely, some of these quartile 1s are getting selected based off their physical ability rather than technical ability. However, when they reach these adult age groups, like you said, now you're 18 now, they tend to have gone through the growth spurts now, and they've gone through puberty, so they'll all be roughly the same strength. And that's why biobanding is sort of a good solution at youth ages, because that's sort of their test for them. So they can be the same physical ability as the rest of them, so they can just get tested on technical and tactical ability. Yeah.
Nice one.
Any other questions?
No, I'm all right.
No, that's it.
Right. So thanks for listening, guys.
Thank you.
No worries. Cheers.